Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Minimum Wage Max BS. The post is titled, "My friend invited my ex-husband to her wedding, so I had to leave. I left my husband Darren 2 years ago when our eldest daughter came out and he physically attacked her for it. We have 4 children and I have sole custody of the 3 who are young enough to be covered by custody agreements. Darren has tried to fight me over custody for the past 2 years, but when you have a criminal record for beating up one child, the courts are unlikely to grant you custody of the others. Darren and I were in the same friendship group since primary school, but my friends told me they had all cut contact with him. I went to my friend Rachel's wedding this weekend when I spotted him at the ceremony. Because it was a wedding and an important day for my friend, I chose not to acknowledge his existence. It was a big wedding anyway, so I thought I could just avoid him and have a conversation with Rachel about his presence at a later date, because she deserved to enjoy her day. However, when I was looking at the seating plan for the reception, I saw both of our names, one after the other. Rachel had put our group, including Darren, at the same table. My 2 other friends from this group convinced me to take my seat because we hardly get to see each other anymore, promising that they had no idea why Darren was invited and vowing to make him regret being born if any drama started. Darren sat next to me, greeted me with a "hey babe" as if we were still together, and I could not cope with being in his presence. All I could think about was desperately trying to restrain him while my second eldest called the police. I downed my glass of Prosecco and walked to my hotel. Yesterday, I got a message from Rachel saying that her mom asked her to invite Darren, and Rachel said yes because her parents were paying for most of the wedding. Rachel's mom is Darren's godmother. I asked her about the seating plan, and again, she said that was her mom's doing because she was adamant that there was a potential for us to get back together. She apologized for not telling me, saying that she thought I wouldn't go if I knew. I have not replied to that message and I don't plan to. As much as I don't want to give up on an over 3-decade-long friendship, I can't get past this. Update. Thank you to everyone for their support in the comments. Before I get into the update, I noticed a couple of comments pointing out my mistake with sole custody, and I'm just grateful that I have a solicitor for custody matters, because if a mistake doesn't come up with a wiggly red line under it, I will not pick up on it. Anyway, I did not reply to Rachel and just blocked her, but her husband called me yesterday. He apologized but then went on about how hard this is for Rachel and how she feels that the day was tainted for her. I told him that how she sees her day is not my responsibility, and I ended up blocking him as well. I talked to one of the members of the friend group and he apologized for convincing me to even sit down at the table. He said he thought more about wanting to have the group back together than about how it would affect me. He then told me that Darren told Rachel's family members who asked where I was that seeing him reminded me too much about our son who died 2 years ago and that I had to leave. He was referring to my daughter, who is a trans woman. Apparently, no one in the group attempted to correct him, so I have just removed myself from our group chats and am going to try to make better friends. Also, thank you to the people who wish my daughter well. She wanted me to say that she really appreciates it and she is starting to thrive. Despite the mental scarring and tinnitus her sorry excuse for a father gave her. I could not be prouder of how far she has come in her journey, and in September she will be the first person in my family to go to university. She is taking a page out of the Petty Queen's book and getting her revenge with a life well lived. Skull Down Under said, "That whole friend group was just a bunch of spineless losers and backstabbing snakes. OP is better off without them." To this user, BR612 said, "What really gets me is that no one at that table spoke up and said, actually, she left because when your child, who isn't dead by the way, came out as trans, you beat said child to the point she still has tinnitus. You have a criminal record, and you lost custody of your other kids. OP decided she couldn't sit next to the man who hurt her child that way, especially once you called her babe, as if it's all fine now. They just let him lie like that. Normally, I'm all for avoiding drama at a wedding and sucking it up. But some things cross the line of that being reasonable, and this is absolutely one of them." The second post was made in the AITA subreddit by a user named Acceptable Mode. The post is titled, "I beat my parents to the chase and moved out in the middle of the night. I overheard conversations with my mom and my dad about how they planned to kick me out shortly after my 18th birthday. The way they were talking about it seemed like they were dead serious, and the fact it was brought up multiple times made it seem like they were definitely going to kick me out. So I decided that I wouldn't give them the chance to kick me out and made plans with my friend Riley to stay at her place until I graduated and moved into a college dorm or had an apartment of my own. Riley's parents were horrified at the thought that my parents would kick me out the second I turned 18 and agreed to let me stay at their place as long as I graduated high school. Riley, her parents, and my boyfriend Cole came after midnight to help me take my belongings to their car and drive me to Riley's house. My parents woke up in the middle of this and asked me what the hell was going on. I kind of shrugged and told them that I was moving out before they could kick me out. My parents tried to deny this and attempted to stop me from leaving, but there was nothing they could do since I am a legal adult. By the way, I wasn't just going to leave in the middle of the night without any goodbye. I already put a note on the kitchen table where my mom goes first thing in the morning explaining what happened. Right now, I'm at Riley's house in their spare bedroom, and I've been bombarded with calls from my parents asking me to come back and not to tell my grandparents about this. In one text, my mom called me an ungrateful bitch for leaving in the middle of the night and said she should have kicked me out sooner. Update: reposting this on my profile because my post got instantly removed for mentioning a YouTube channel. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting to see my story on r// when I woke up this morning, but here we are. I honestly forgot about this account and struggled to remember the password, but here we go. A lot of shocking information was revealed, and this is just my brief, messy account of it. So, like you all suggested, I told my grandparents what happened, including screenshots of my parents' texts after I went to Riley's house. Let me tell you, they were livid about what my parents were saying to me and the fact that they were planning to kick me out. I ended up meeting up with my grandparents and staying with them at their place for a few days while they tried to figure out what was going on with my parents. My mom and dad were being sent money monthly by my grandma and grandpa for my college fund, since they had mostly depleted it after my brother Alex moved out because he was tired of them begging him for money due to their gambling addictions. My mom admitted that their plan was to kick me out, but act like I moved out willingly because I found an apartment and then get double the money they were previously getting by asking my grandparents for rent money to help out. Grandma yelled at my mom over the phone and told her that she'd never see a dime of her money again. She told my mom that she would rewrite her will so that the money my mom would have gotten would go to me, which made my mom freak out. My dad blew up my phone one more time before I blocked both his and my mom's numbers for good, calling me an evil and telling me that he wished my mom had aborted me. So yeah, I talked with my brother Alex, and the only thing he really had to say or ask, I guess, was why our parents' scummy behavior hadn't been called out when they were trying to legitimately steal his paychecks to go gamble. I'm sorry if this is kind of rambly, but this was the best I could do at the moment. Thank you all for your advice, and I might give another update if anything else happens, but I doubt it will. Bum Chester said, I wish her brother had warned her when he moved out, but it probably happened when she was too young to do anything. Now, as an adult, she can escape. Charlotte Lucas said, gambling addiction doesn't kill you outright the way drugs or alcohol will, but it certainly destroys all your relationships once you start stealing money from anywhere you can find it. Yavanna12 said, this is how I left my home at 18. I left a note on the table for my mom, and my boyfriend picked me up in the middle of the night. Thankfully, she slept through it. As an adult, I've now opened my home to kids in similar situations who don't know where to go. Mostly, I house transgender kids getting kicked out due to their parents' bigotry. I used to joke that most people's kids bring home stray animals, but my kids bring home stray people. Also, I no longer speak to my mother. This final post was made in the same subreddit by a user named Bottle Long Jumping. The post is titled, My ex dumped me in January after 9 years together because he didn't think I was wife material. Now he reached out wanting to talk because he needs to get something off of his chest. I don't want to go too much into the details, but for the last 9 years, I lost myself to Nate. He was my world. Everything I did was for him. I helped him through depression, helped him get and keep his grades up, and even worked 2 jobs so he could focus on college when his parents disowned him for nearly 3 years because they didn't agree with the major or college he chose. Bear in mind, I was also a college student. When his parents started talking to him again and began to support him financially, we moved into a new apartment. Nate said he wanted me to quit my job because it was his turn to take care of me. For 16 months, everything was great. He spoiled me. Then I noticed he was more interested in his new friends, and at times he ignored me completely. Back in December, he did a complete 180 and love bombed me the whole month. He really went out of his way to make Christmas magical for me. I honestly believed he was going to propose. On January 2nd, he made me my favorite dinner and gave this speech about how I was his first love and how I'd been there since high school. I kept thinking, any minute now, he's going to ask me to marry him. But no, he dumped me. As his speech went on, my world fell apart, and as much as he tried to sugarcoat it, he basically said, "You were a good girlfriend, but that's all you'll ever be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife or the mother of my children. You served your purpose, now I don't need you anymore. I need someone on my level. You're a gold digger. I'll give you 30 days to move out." I couldn't speak, and he stared at me, waiting for a response. I think this lasted 20 minutes before he said he'd sleep in the guest room and then left. Strangely, I didn't cry or get angry. I just ordered cardboard boxes online and went to bed. The next day, I waited for him to leave the apartment before I left my room. Then I called my boss and asked if I could transfer anywhere. She told me there wasn't anything available, but if something came up in my department, she'd consider me. I then reached out to everyone I knew who wasn't also Nate's friend for a place to stay. My cousin invited me to stay in her spare room for as long as I needed, and I could move in straight away, so that was amazing. In the 4 days it took me to pack my stuff and move out, I didn't see or speak to Nate. I doubt he even noticed. I didn't trust myself at the time to ignore a "you up" text, so I blocked him and everyone close to him. I even changed my number and email to make sure he couldn't reach me. The first night at my cousin's was when everything hit me. I think I cried every night for the first month. I honestly felt like shit. I thought about what Nate said over and over again. It made me feel so low, like I was nothing, like he only stayed with me because I was just there. Thankfully, my cousin sent for my mom, other cousins, and real friends to give me an intervention, which I badly needed. I believe that first month I wouldn't have made it without my cousin. I'm still healing and waiting on that job transfer because I feel like if I'm not in the same city as Nate and I have a place of my own, the fresh start would do me a world of good. I thought by now I'd be a distant memory for Nate, but shockingly, he sent flowers to my job today for my birthday. Apparently, he went to my parents' house looking for me too, and my mom admitted he's been there before, dropping off stuff and trying to ask questions about me, but they told him to leave. The flowers came with a card saying, "Dear Cassie, happy belated birthday. I've been thinking about you nonstop for the last few months, especially with how everything ended. I need to get something off my chest that I feel will haunt me for the rest of my life if I don't tell you this to your face, but I have no way of contacting you. If it's possible, can we meet up in the near future? Nate." What could he want? What's haunting him that he needs to say to my face? Everyone in my life is telling me to ignore him, but they hate him. I'm torn, but I can't lie. My curiosity is telling me to meet him to see what he wants. Has anyone been in my shoes or in Nate's? Update. So we ended up meeting, and no, I didn't go to him. I had told the receptionist at my work that if he came looking for me, just to say I'm out for the day. After he showed up once, I didn't want the drama of him around my job. So Nate just kept going to my usual places, like the grocery store I go to every Saturday evening or the park where I run on Sunday mornings, until he would eventually run into me. And he did yesterday. He was waiting at the coffee shop I go to after my morning run. When I saw him, I tried to turn around and leave, but he kept calling me. So I thought to myself, if everything went pear-shaped, a coffee shop would be safer than my walk home. So I just sat down and asked him what he wanted. He gave an apology that wasn't really an apology, you know, the type with "I'm sorry but" and "pity me." He blamed his mental health, his job, his parents, his friends, everyone but himself. I took someone's advice on here and said, cut the crap. I already know everything. He genuinely looked shocked and stared at me for a second. I guess he thought his co-worker had already told me everything, so he couldn't lie. Here's what really happened. He fell for a girl in his office. When he told me her name, I knew her immediately. I've met her a few times. He told me that for the last 2 years, he idolized her and he hated me because I was the one stopping them from being together, since his co-worker was too classy to be a side piece. When he broke up with me, he confessed to her that he was madly in love with her and that he ended a 9-year relationship to be with her. Well, here's where it gets funny. She doesn't even like him. She called him a piece of trash and told him if he ever spoke to her outside work, she'd report him to human resources. So I asked him, what does any of this have to do with me? We are over. I clearly cut ties. There's no reason for us to speak. He wants to try again and promised that we'd get married before the year ends, saying we belong together. I told him no, I'm nobody's second choice. He threw me away after 9 years and said some pretty cruel things to me, and now he thinks if he snaps his fingers, I'll come running back. He tried to beg and fake tears, bringing up the good times in our relationship. I told him to please leave me alone as he had already wasted too much of my time. I texted my cousin to meet me at the coffee shop. He kept saying nonsense and even suggested that if I went to couples counseling for a few months, he'd leave me alone. The 20 minutes it took for my cousin to arrive felt like 20 years. In the end, I just stopped listening and stood at the counter making small talk with the baristas until my cousin arrived. She told him to fuck off and said if he tried to follow us, she'd call her brothers. He stayed in the coffee shop as far as I know, and we just went home. That's it. It's only been a day, but I feel like it's over and I'm free of him. Miss Janet Snakehole said, this guy overestimates himself so much that he misinterpreted his co-worker's signals for 2 years and then just blew up his life on a leap of faith. Thank God he broke up with OP beforehand though, or she would probably still be with this loser after the co-worker rejected him. To this user Illustrious Complex said, I got asked out by a guy at work whose name I didn't even know. I might have only said hi to him a few times. Unfortunately, there are a lot of guys who just flat out assume that basic manners are flirting. Azriel said, Nate is a fool for sure, but I feel like I'm too middle-aged to know what Nate and Cassie are referring to. To this user Literal Brick Wall said, it's a reference to the show Euphoria. As she said, Nate and Cassie, without her betraying. Nate is a very toxic character who gets together with Cassie later in the show, being with her simply to fill the girlfriend gap. He was previously with a character named Maddie. After they broke up, Maddie's best friend Cassie gets with Nate, which was a huge betrayal to Maddie, especially considering the reason Nate and Maddie broke up. He was abusive. Cassie became obsessive over Nate and would do anything for his attention and approval. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.